I'm so happy to be with you. Nice to see you again on this summit here,
Yes,
the family tree. How are you
yes.
doing today, Shauna?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited about this summit. I'm very excited about what I have to share today.
Oh, thank you. We do also, because people don't know yet about what you will share with us, but we discussed together a little bit, and I know this will be fascinating, a beautiful experience. And so, without waiting for, just to say for the people who did not see you yesterday, to say that you they can see your bio on on the website, but maybe I can still say a little bit about you if you
Okay.
allow me. Do you know how long that we can have the best of experience with you? But still, let me tell you. So Shauna is the founder of Journey into the Heart. You are author of the #1 international bestseller called Big Souls Make Big Promises. And this is a book I do encourage you, I do invite you to read, because it's talking very simply and accurately about the tools and the therapies, alternative therapies that Shona is using for helping, accompanying people for healing and transformation. And you have, Shona, a phenomenally successful course called Relationship Alchemy, and that you help people to find peace of mind and to find back sovereignty to the soul in any given situation. Hmm. You are also mother of 11 successful children that make a huge contributions to the world. And you say that the HBO series Big Love, for the people who know them, the series, was your story. You won the Mother of the Year from the Utah governor. So this is an award, and then so you have been mentioned and you won it. And all of the challenges in your own life, your commitment to rise above, has been what allowed you the learnings and wisdom you now has and share with us. Thank you, Shana, to be here with us today. It's such an honor and a grace. And without waiting any longer, I give you that we can hear you expressing what you'd like to share with us today, because you do represent the voice of shadow and light, of the opposites.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Yes. So there are so many modalities and so many healers that to bring you to the light. But I'm called the shadow expert because in my experience of my own shadow, that I didn't even discover until I was in my 60s, that because I had had physical abuse as an infant and I'd shut it out, but all that trauma and all that shadow was running my life unconsciously, and I didn't realize that all the difficulties in my life were attributed to that shadow. And I have devoted my life to help others understand their shadow so that they don't have to be in their 60s before they discover
Mm.
anything about their shadow. So, shadow's job is to stop us from our light. Shadow's job is to drive our bus, and we go on crazy, crazy places with our shadow. I had many self-sabotage where I created beautiful ways to have financial freedom, and then I would sabotage. I could never get my hands on money or love entirely because I had this belief within myself, this shadow that was stopping me my from my dreams and my goals. So in this third dimension, we came with our body and our spirit, and we have a polarization of light and dark. And so we're constantly experiencing the shadow and the light, and we go down and we go up. But what we want to do now, the energy in the earth is shifting, and it's time for us to integrate that and bring it to the center, not go all the way to the light, because it makes our shadow much more powerful. When we push our shadow away, we push our fears away, we deny that part of us, and it not only denies us of our light, but of our self-love.
It makes me think about this quote saying, what you resist persists.
Exactly. That's so true. And when you don't know anything about your shadow, then it knows everything about you. And the shadow is got the wheel, the hands on the wheel of your bus driving. And what you want to do is really get present and get familiar with your shadow, because if you know all about your shadow, if you know the characteristics of your shadow, then it's not shadow anymore. You bring in truth, love, and light to your shadow. And so many of us are afraid of darkness. We're afraid of demons. And demons are just a negative energy that is powerful because we are not paying attention to it. I call it spiritual bypassing, to
Ah,
to stay busy and keep busy so we don't have to go that deep within ourselves. The challenge with that is we cannot truly love anybody outside of ourselves until we can love our shadow. So my
oh my
saying
God.
is, fall in love with your shadow and discover your shadow, and you will take a deep dive into self-love. That is where your love is. That is where your divine is. You know that there's the sun and the moon is the female. That the moon lights up the darkness, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to
Indeed.
light up the darkness within us, and that way we can see our way through it. And it's very not everybody goes around talking about their shadow. It's something we
Yeah.
want to push away, and we are ashamed. Shame is our shadow. Shame teaches us to cover up everything, but we're also covering up our greatness. So in my experience of the abuse, I disassociated from my body to tolerate my own father beating me for crying, and it brought me into this shadow world so that I'm familiar with it, and I know people, I know their shadow, and I know their light, and I see them both as equal. Not one of them is any better than the other. It just is. But we have a judgment on our shadow. We think there's something bad and wrong with shadow. So we end up being judgmental about people outside of us. And that's why America's getting so crazy with all these battles of who's right and who's wrong, because we're not taking all the conflict outside of us and bringing it within to discover what conflicts are going on within us. Since
Yes.
2012, the energy shifted. The Mayans predicted of the shift in the energy, and it's brought in the female, the masculine, feminine, divine energy. It's brought it in, and it's clashing with our male and female energy, which is the survival. And so we have a clash within ourselves of these energies, because we're used to running on this third dimension: fear, shame, and blame. And we easily access shame, blame, and guilt, but we don't know how to access truth, love, and light because we're so busy running and hiding from our shadow. So,
It takes a lot of energy indeed. Plus, we have been raised to be good people, right? So it's not always easy to want to tend to dive into what is not going on well. And yeah, this is why your work is so important. Yeah.
yes. And it's truly amazing when I do the constellations. The family constellations are a beautiful way to access your shadow because you're the observer. And when you sit in the chair beside me as a seeker or any other practitioner, when you sit as an observer, that is what, and you sit with a strong intention, the intention will shift the shadow and heal the shadow and bring it to the light. And it's really beautiful to see the change in people when they can observe that and see that, oh, my mother went through this and my grandmother went through this, and so they're now I understand their behaviors. Now I understand why I was living their life and and didn't understand the loop I was in. And so we really want to get present to what thoughts we're having, what shadow is there, because it's most of it isn't even ours. And I talked last time about the experiment with that the scientists did with the mouse and the cherry blossoms, shocking the mouse with when he'd smell the cherry blossoms. And they mated him with until he was shocked he was traumatized by smelling the cherry blossoms. They mated him with the female, and for 6 generations, they were shocked when they were traumatized when they smelled the cherry blossoms. And that's our behavior with our ancestral loops that we're in. We are reacting to shadow that doesn't even belong to us.
I understand.
And
It
so,
is a memory that is passing from generation to generation to
yes,
generation until someday someone will, perhaps with the good synchronicities, really take it and bring it to the awareness then, and then to the consciousness on how to transform. Yeah.
exactly. And we're not only helping ourselves and our ancestors and our past lives by transmuting this energy, but according to Dr. Fannin, the energy never leaves, never goes away. It stays until we transmute it. The energy does not disappear just because somebody dies. And
Indeed.
so we take on energy around us if we're not aware of our shadow within ourselves. Then we're attracting more shadow. The Heart Math Institute that studied the communication of the heart, they tell us that we only communicate 10% of verbal communication. Only
Indeed.
10% of our communication is verbal. That means we have soul wounds or shadow communicating to each other, and we are bringing on these conflicts within ourselves because we are actually asking for this, creating this outside of ourselves, and we think it's other people. So it may sound complicated, but it's really, really simple. And I've brought it into a very simple format where you can start a journal on your shadow.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Mm.
because we have two sides of us, and I'm going to show you what I do in my relationship alchemy. So we have um, we have this book, and this is who we are. But we first need to know who we aren't. So we turn the book over and upside down. Now at the
Oh,
back is our shadow journal. And we want our shadow at the back of the bus. That's why I put it in the back. So what you do, and I have this on my website, I have the instructions for a shadow journal on my website. You can get them free. And I also will
wow.
give you a 30-minute call so that I can help you understand if it's confusing for you, I can help you understand how to track your shadows and how to keep a journal. So what I do is I give you the characteristics of shadow. Now, first, let's talk about what shadow is. There's many.
This question is just showing up, you know, this is perfect. Thank you. People are very much listening. Yes.
Okay. So our shadow, we only know 5% of who we are. And Dr. Fannin talks about that. And many scientists say the same. Freud says 5% is all we know of who we are. The other
Indeed.
95% is our unconscious negative thoughts. Think of this, 95% is running our lives. And in this 95%, we are having thoughts that are creating our life outside of ourselves. So shadow, I'm going to talk about the different things that create shadow. One of the first things I address in constellations is your parental imprints. So we grow up watching our parents, watching their relationships, watching their behaviors. And so we have imprints from our parents just from observing them. So parental
And
imprints.
also also it seems that it starts in the womb of the mother, that we
Yes,
already receive the imprint of her emotions and
yes,
what she eats and what she listens to, like a music perhaps, or anything that do happen to her. So it starts the imprint at that moment. Yes, and then so we tend, as you say, so to replicate from them. We learn from
yes,
watching them. Yeah.
yes. And with 11 children, I can attest to that. Whatever I was going through
Mm.
as when carrying my children, then it shows up in their life. So we have our parental imprints that we take into our relationships. So we start interacting with our lovers or our spouses in the way we learned as a child with our parents. Even if your parent has even if you had a good relationship with your parents, this isn't you. This isn't your life. You're running your patterns on somebody else instead of being present to who you are and what you want in a relationship. So that's one of the biggest. That's a big imprint. The second one that's huge is our ancestral patterns, our loops. We get caught in a loop. And if you look up the Ghost in Your Genes, it's a documentary where they studied, there was a town in somewhere in Europe, I can't remember where, and they had kept perfect records. And they found that the grandparents most often pass things on to the grandchildren. And
Mm.
so the great great grandmother, many times I do constellations where it goes to the great great grandmother. They are what comes up is the same thing that the seeker in the chair is running, the same patterns. So we get caught in a loop of our ancestors and we don't realize that it doesn't belong to us. We just made a commitment to heal it. And so here we are in this time when there's so many modalities, we have the ability to heal that. Then we also have limiting beliefs in our shadow that we pick up as we grow. When you're from the time you're an infant in the womb up to 7 years old, you don't have the ability to have filters that give you the reasoning. And so
Indeed.
we are very traumatized many times just by something somebody says to us or what our parents say or something that happened to us. We have no way of filtering that.
Yeah,
So
we're
we
very
have,
receptive. So it seems to be the truth.
yes, and so
Yeah.
we have these limiting beliefs on our in our shadow. And then we have many times we have um, soul wounds where we're downloading other people's soul wounds because we ourselves have not dealt with our own shadow. So we call it soul wound bonding. And so we
Oh,
keep attracting these abusive relationships or these people in our lives that keep us in a frequency. so that we can't rise above that frequency and live a life of our dreams, because we're stuck in these patterns and we keep attracting these soul wounds. And so it's also keeping us from our greater light. So when we actually think we're seeking the light, but we're always validating the shadow, we're always living the shadow because we don't know about it. So
Wow. So
that is, go
dense.
ahead.
No, I mean it is so dense, and I like the fact that you give the when you speak about the switch in 2012 that now many modalities can help us. It is not we can change. We have an opportunity to change, and
Yes.
so even when we are imprinted by our parents or our teachers or they say the society tags, it's like a tag on us. Okay, because the world wants to define. We need to define. This is one of our natural role that the mind likes to do is to tag or is to categorize, and then that we can still change the category we have been given. From what I hear from you, and I like it very much.
Yes. And
Yes.
if you look up the double split experiment, it's
Hmm.
all about being able to be the observer with a strong intention. Then you can transmute energy. You can shift the energy. But if you don't observe it,
Hmm.
then there's no way of transmitting it. You're resisting it. So it becomes more powerful. And that's the whole point of the shadow journal, is you are not resisting it. You're bringing light to it. You're embracing it. When I
Nice.
do these constellations, sometimes a dark energy will come up in the ancestral constellations. And rather than, a lot of people like, oh, that's scary, that's dark. But what we do is we have the whole circle send love to that darkness and transmute it with love. But fear makes it stronger. So we want to always be looking into our fears, because behind our fear is a victim that says, I have no power, I am powerless, and there's nothing I can do.
And also sometimes, could it be a fear also of change? That could be from the person and also the system around the person. Sometimes it's more comfortable, even if it's not comfortable, to not change because we know it. So it is familiar with us. And we know that the human mind doesn't want so much to deal with change. So sometimes it can belong to the person who can fear, and also can it also belong sometimes to the system to resist the change, the possible change. Could it
Absolutely.
be?
And what we say is, be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, indeed.
because to in order to and that's a lot of times we're just afraid of the unknown. The shadow is obscure, it's dark, it's unknown, it's scary. But find out what's behind those fears, because by being a victim to it, if you understand, we have three um, electromagnetic fields in our body. One of them is our chakras, the other is our heart, and the other is the torus that's around our aura. It's the torus. And those energies will support us in transmuting the shadow. And
Yeah.
so we are, I call it our sacred space. We are the only ones that we want to control things outside of ourselves and change what's going on out there, and we can't. And that's our frustration with other people. Why are
Hmm.
they doing this and why are they doing that? Instead, we have so much power within our own sacred space, and that is where we step into our power. So in my relationship alchemy, I teach also, I help people find their 12 metaphysical qualities of who they are, because we all have 12 spiritual qualities. And
Cool.
in that way, we can stand in our power and face anything, because we are so powerful when we stand in what we hold within us. Do you agree?
Yes, I do so, and I'm very curious to know. We know that about the 12 qualities, spiritual qualities. I'm very curious. Perhaps would you like to name, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 of them that people could understand what it
Yes. Well, I have a list of spiritual qualities that I give, and then you pick out, you go in meditation, you pick out 12 of those qualities, and then you narrow it down to 4, and you always speak to that every day. I am love, and I visualize a being of love. I am freedom, and I visualize an eagle flying with freedom. I am grace, and I visualize a queen that has boundaries. I am wisdom, and I visualize a shaman with great wisdom, an indigenous shaman. So those are my 4 qualities that I speak to all the time. And it was
I
really
love that.
interesting. I've been doing this for years, and it's really interesting in my plant ceremony, in my Aya, the grandmother ceremony, all 4 of those showed up at different times in a big way. So I know this works, and that's who you are. But first, you must understand who you're not. If you don't understand who you're not, this is the polarization you came here to learn about. If you don't understand the polarization of your light, then you haven't learned what you came here to learn. That's why it's so important to integrate them and bring them together to become the most powerful and divine being that you came here to be. And
I
that
love
is the secret to rising with the consciousness of the earth. We can all raise the consciousness of the earth by raising our own consciousness and transmuting this energy that's stopping us from our light. We can all join together and become a conscious community by facing our shadow.
I love that. Thank you, Shona. And there is a question from Sandrine who says how to access our 12 spiritual qualities and rituals. And this is beautiful because you started to answer to that, which is also to visualize. And could we say that, for example, when you mentioned the shaman and the eagle, the queen, and so for the sovereignty, can we say that you use archetypes? Is it what, because many people do speak about archetypes these times, or is it different?
Well, I just visualize what helps me think of that quality, like I am love. So I grew up thinking I was unlovable. And so actually to experience love from this loving being, a heavenly being. So I just experience that love within myself when I say I am love. And then when I say freedom, I was confined to a crib my entire infant life. And so freedom is huge for me because I am free to fly and do and go anywhere I desire in my dreams and in my passion and in my life. So
Mm.
I am freedom. So it's feeling that. I don't think having an archetype is as effective as actually what makes you feel free. And I have so much respect for the eagle, and because they're the closest thing to creator, and they always give us messages from the creator and deliver messages. That's what I learned from being married to a native. So the
Indeed,
eagles are
because
very powerful.
thank you to
And
share
then
that with us. Yes, and it does answer to Sandrine. Thank you.
yes, and then I am grace. I developed I developed a very harsh voice because I demanded to be heard, because my whole life they were trying to shut me down and tell me I couldn't cry. And so I developed this harsh voice. and I would say things that weren't lovable and that made me not lovable. And so grace, and also I didn't have boundaries because my parents didn't, we had no boundaries in our family. And so being grace, as a queen knows how to have boundaries. The reason queens wave like this, we know what to say no, you're not coming in my space, or what to receive into our space, right?
Love
So
that.
that's why I am grace, and I have the ability to be graceful and receive what serves me and deny anything in my space that doesn't serve me, right? And then the wisdom of the indigenous people, the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom that is ours, it's available to us if we are in a space of receiving that rather than resisting everything that we don't want to hear. And so the wisdom is being able to embrace all of us, embrace all of our dark, and listen to the wisdom that the two of them give. Because when you integrate them together, then your knowledge and your wisdom is so much more powerful. And in the third dimension, we have healers that tell us what we should do, tell us what's wrong, and tell us all these things. Now we don't need that. We don't need other people to tell us what we should do, because if you can embrace your shadow, you will access your own truth. That's what I love about constellations, is you're sitting in that chair and you are observing what's going on in your life, and you get to see for yourself. You don't have to have me tell you how to change it or how to do anything with it. All I do is make sure that when you sit in the chair, you have a very strong intention. It's interesting because I have had some people that want to get it all done at once. And so they come and sit in the chair and they say, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And I'll say, well, what do you want? What's your strongest intention? And this one gal kept saying, well, I want this, but I want this, and I want this, and I want this.
Yeah.
So I put it all in the circle for her.
Want it all, yeah.
And it was so much chaos. It was just chaos. And I said,
Reflecting.
this is a state of mind you're in, because you want to change everything and you want everything to go away. So you just want to have one strong intention. And so I told her, I said, come back tomorrow and come back with a strong intention. So she did. And that constellation was so powerful, it went to I call it a universal constellation, where we are clearing for the planet. It gets that powerful when my intention and your intention is put into the circle. It's very, very powerful. So remember the observer effect and be the observer of your life. I also have 10 steps of how to observe and how to manage your shadow. So I would be glad to share any of this. I have an email of Shauna, SHAUNA, at journeyintotheheart.net.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Shauna. And we can also write down. People know that they can find your bio on the website, healingthefamilytree.com. They can find your bio and all your social media links. And we can also, in the chat, put your email address and perhaps your website. And then so that people can also reach you directly here. Well, they can still find everything online and so on the website. We will be sure about that, because this is very generous of you, Shauna. What I hear is that you have tools and you share them with us, and we already have things to think about, to reflect about. So I like very much the observer effect, and also one intention at a time. That
Yes.
are very two things very powerful, that seems to be simple but then powerful. We don't need to have complicated things, and this is what I like very much about you, is that we can be already in the moment, in the experience of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And what I'm so excited about is Sophie has invited me to France. And we
Indeed.
are going to have an event in France and in Switzerland, right?
Exactly. Ah,
And
I
it,
like that
it,
you speak about that. Yes.
yes, I'm so excited to come and visit you in France. I'm so honored that Sophie would have me there. And so maybe you can speak a little on that.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you so much, Shona, that you speak about that. Of course, our intention, our strong intention, so that we aligned together, you and I, is that in May, not knowing, no, of course, about the situation, the global situation with the pandemic, but our intention is that we have two events that are planned. One in France, indeed, in May. This is a week of systemic constellation. You will have an experience of what is constellation. We will work every day. Everybody will receive a constellation at the level they need for a whole week. So we'll be able to navigate through our ancestors and through our own life, our light and shadows. We will not forget the shadows, to face them, to embrace them, and then to transmute them, as you said so nicely.
Mhm.
And we will have a whole experience. So in the little city of Annecy in Haute-Savoie, so which
Mhm.
is a part of the French Alps. And then, so the week after, we'll have 1 week also of systemic constellation work in Switzerland. And so we will give everything when we know a little bit more about the pandemic. You will find back on the social medias and the websites of Shona and mine. So the dates and the conditions, let's say information and the guideline to be able to access the event. We will even have a 2-day event specifically for people who are already therapists and who'd like to implement into their work, the constellations, some tools that they can use also in their work. Of course, today is a period of time that will allow us to make an introduction to the work. But still, you will see, it's very deep work, and it already gives much more than a glimpse of the work we can do. Shona, you have a so long experience, a so deep experience in systemic constellations, and you do have tools that not everybody do have in the field of constellations, because you do work also with horses. So you have a specific approach also of the work, which is your, I mean, that nobody else do have. So this is a kind of unique way. And you mentioned, of course, other relations. You have a strong relationship with nature and with also, let's say, alternative medicines that, for some part, they are people are familiar more or less into certain countries, but we know that you do have this very close relationship with, let's say, Mother Nature. People may
Mhm.
understand, the people who do listen to us actually. So yes, and we will send you every possible information that you can reach us and attend our events. It's kind of life-changing experience because we will go deep. We will be the two of us to facilitate you. I'm so happy, Shona, that you will come and I can assist you for your work
Mhm.
because you have already more than hundreds of people who did attend your workshops and learned from you and transformed from you and from your circles. So I'm very happy, excited. We don't have now completely the dates. We know the dates we planned, and then we'll see with the pandemics. But let's say after the event, for sure, within the next weeks, you can receive informations about locations and duration, modalities, prices, and so on. Shona,
Yes.
I do have a question from this is Haley. So Haley, thank you very much. You say, thank you for your contact information, Shona. I ordered your book and will be getting it today in the mail. So I say again the title, Big Souls Make Big Promises. And Haley says, I found you through Nicole in Oklahoma. I'm excited to take advantage of the free 30-minute session you mentioned. Okay, that's beautiful. And then she asked
Wow.
how she considered that. Tell us.
Yes, and no, Nicole, that was a beautiful connection. She got inspired to come to my Airbnb. She came to St. George, Utah, and as soon as I opened the door to let her in, we both had feather earrings, and we both immediately connected, and we were like best friends. And so she went back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she knew I was having one of my relationship alchemy events. So she came back and went to that. And she was so changed by it that she invited me back to Tulsa. And now we have a whole spiritual community in Tulsa that
Oh,
they have me over all the time to do constellations there. So we do traveling constellations. If you have enough of a community that want to do the constellations, then we do travel, and we'll go if if you have enough people, because my dream is to raise the consciousness of the world, and we do that by raising our own consciousness and transmuting our energy. And another thing I want to speak on is something that is so important, is illnesses are caused by stuck energy. It's caused by shadow, not listening to shadow. That will cause illnesses. I have a book called Messages of the Body that actually tell the message of each illness. So that's how important it is to listen to your shadow. So what I do with illnesses, and I can say this for myself, about a year and it was a year ago next June, I was diagnosed to go blind. I had cataracts and cornea dystrophy.
mm.
And my mother had cornea dystrophy, and my two grandpas went blind.
So
So
from
I
your two
knew,
lineage. Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
from both my dad and my mom. So I knew, and in the Messages of the Body, it said not being willing to see what I needed to see. And that's when I discovered my big shadow. Well, no, I discovered it before that, but that's why it all came up. Anyway, so I did constellations on my eyes, and there was so much there from my mother. So I put my mother and dad in there to see where it was coming from. And I put my eyes in there, a representative for my eyes. And the representative went over and went behind my mother and stayed behind her. So I knew that is where the issue was. So we had to do healing on my mother and her trauma, and then healing with the eyes. So it's very interesting because illnesses are energy. There's a
Oh,
message in your illnesses. So we can get that energy expressed and witnessed and transmuted in the constellations. That's what autoimmune diseases are. They're energy that's stuck. And that's why you just can't get past that disease, because you have all that energy. I've not had any doctor do anything to my eyes, and I am
wow,
here.
that's such amazing. This is what we call the inner wisdom or the body language, right? This is amazing. And isn't it incredible that the infinite possibilities of diving into the message of what we live? So, of course, the positive messages, we always understand them. What is the most difficult is to understand what is the message behind a difficulty or blockage or an illness, and to find the sense, to find the meaning of the experience, of the challenge. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you so much
yes.
to give us this
And
example.
what was interesting is after that, I did a ancestral constellation, and my great great grandfather, he was having a hard time seeing in that
Oh,
constellation.
mhm.
And it was because he had done something to his granddaughter he was ashamed of. And so he was not willing to see it and own it. And so
Oh,
that was huge. And so there are things that happen. We're not all perfect. We have things in our we have things that have happened. Another thing I want to share with you is so exciting about constellations is I had a man who, he was in Canada, and he had such a struggle with, his father was a drunk and left him when he was little, and just abandoned the family. And so his mother remarried his stepfather. His stepfather abused him, so he was physically abused him. So he had a lot of judgment on the male and the father figure.
Indeed.
And he was really in a victim place about it. He couldn't get past this, and he was vacillating between both fathers and what they did to him, and he couldn't get past it. So he came to my relationship alchemy course, and the thing that's really powerful about a 10-day course is you're representing every day, and the representative gets just as much processing as the seeker. And so he kept getting chosen for parts. One of them was he was chosen to represent a drunk, another one abusive dad, another one a child from abusive dad. So he was representing every perspective from what he had experienced. So by the time he was done with the course, he was in such a loving place for his father and his stepfather. He had lost that judgment because he got to see every we have so much judgment on what somebody did to us, but we don't understand what's been done to them. And a lot of addictions are caused by avoiding your shadow, avoiding your hurt and your pains and what's been done to you. And so we either do it by addictions or distractions, being busyness, and being on overwhelm is such a distraction from shadow. And that's why COVID, and a lot of the light workers say COVID was a good thing in that it got everybody to be home, be present with their family, and go within yourself. And let's not have to have a disease or to go within ourselves. Let's choose to go in ourselves and bring the love and the light and the dark and bring them together and love ourselves fully, because we can't love outside of ourselves if we don't love ourselves completely.
I love that. Thank you so much, Shauna. It's really beautiful. We understand that the work you do, which you do facilitate, does help people to change the perspective and to get more completed into the perception of the world around that we've been through and we are going through too. This is really a beautiful message of hope. And I think for the people who do listen to us, that you can go various different messages asking how to reach you, Shauna, because they really like what you share with us today, and specifically, so Hele, so asking how to set up the 30-minute sessions. So Hele, we will send a specific message. There will be the replay of it, and we will send a specific message that you can specifically go on the website of Shauna, and then that you can reach Shauna to see with her how to set up the session. And yes, you're welcome, Hele. And so I'm checking in the Q&A because there are. So this is Marie-Claire. Thank you, Marie-Claire. She says, thank you. She says, merci in French. And I'm very excited but because if in this part of France, so in French Alps, we will be soon welcoming you in our community here. We'll have a chance to work with you, to learn with you, to grow with you, to transform. And so that will be beautiful.
Oh,
and
thank you. Thank you,
yeah.
Marie.
You're welcome, Shauna. It's such an honor to have you. We have the chance to have you 2 times on this summit. And we don't worry, everybody who listen to us, we will have a replay for the people who will also join us later because of the time zone. And indeed, for the Shadow Journal, we will send you a very explicit message that you can also see how to go on this Shadow Journal.
Yes, and I just want to say, in the book, the reason I wrote this book is because a lot of people don't understand constellations. Now in Europe, I think you understand constellations. It's pretty common, but in America, I and hundreds of people I've had in my constellation circle, only about 5 of them even knew what constellations were. So America's way behind Europe in that. And so I'm very excited that Sophie is helping us to get the word out. And I'm so honored and privileged to be able to share this, because what I call big souls are are people who have made a big commitment to come on this earth and make a difference. And they want to go all the way. They don't want to stop. Many people don't want to cross that threshold of victim because they want to stay in that safe place of saying, I everything's happening to me and I'm powerless. And that's okay. If the but a big soul said, I'm going all the way. I'm taking my life and I'm living my commitments and my promises to my ancestors. I'm cleaning up the DNA in my past lives, and I'm doing all the work so that I can contribute to raising the consciousness of the earth. And I
Oh,
love all of you. I love you. I love big souls, and I love those that want to stay where they're at. It's okay, because there's no bad and wrong, and we have no judgments. And the most critical thing is to not judge your shadow. Demons just need to be loved. It's just negative energy. It's just powerful because it's been denied and unrecognized.
Thank you so much, Shauna. It was a beautiful message for closing this circle, because let's call it a circle of sharing information, sharing light, also sharing how to transform shadows. And so we look forward to continue the conversation with you, Shauna. It will be in direct in France soon. And we have from Dana, so perfect, obrigada. We do have also Nada. So thank you so much. It was very interesting. So Shauna, we will end on these beautiful words. And don't worry, everybody, you will receive the replay and you will receive instructions to access to Shauna for what you generously shared with us today. Thank you again, Shauna. We
Thank
wish
you.
you a beautiful day. Thank you for this wisdom of yours and look forward to see you again.
Thank you, Sophie.
I love
Bye-bye.
you very much. Bye bye, Shauna.
Love you.
Thank you.
Love you all.